Couchbase Capella Database as a Service is flexible, full-featured, and fully managed, with built-in access via key value, SQL, and full-text search. It's blazing fast, yet surprisingly affordable. Visit couchbase.com/Hansel Minutes to try Capella today for free. No credit card required. Hey friends, I'm Scott Hanselman, and it's another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm talking with Maya Bello. She's a software engineer at Slack and a full-stack software engineer. She's got a great YouTube. She's on TikTok. She's doing the most, and now she's on this show. How are you?
I'm good. Love the intro. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm glad to be chatting with you today. You and I were talking on Twitter in DMs about imposter syndrome, and it's something that I've written about extensively. I've talked about it a lot, and I thought it was time to maybe revisit that on this show. But then I'm realizing that I have a YouTube and I have a TikTok and I have a blog and you have a YouTube. Why are you and I worried about imposter syndrome? We're doing a lot.
Yeah, I feel like my first experiences with imposter syndrome was when I was first learning to code. So I think what was happening was like in high school, like sometimes there would be hard classes and stuff like that, but I never really felt like a fraud or anything.
Mm,
But it was when I was in, college, I was in an environment that like there was a lot of people that didn't look like me and they had all this experience already learning to code. And, that's when I first, started to have imposter syndrome.
Do you think that that's just because when younger people work with later in career people, that's what happens? Or is it something specific to the people that don't look like you? Or is it a combination of all those things?
I think it's definitely like a combination of things. Like, when something was hard for me in high school, no one told me I don't belong here. I should pick a different major. Like no one told me that. It wasn't until, later on when I was in college where I had professors telling me like, try cognitive science, and I'm like bawling my eyes out. I went to office hours like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And, someone that's teaching this, that's in industry is telling you that you don't belong here. So I feel like it's very easy to feel like a fraud, like in that type of environment.
So let's unpack that for a second. Like someone told you who was teaching you that maybe the thing you were learning was not your thing.
Yes.
The only time that has ever happened to me was calculus. I was
Hmm.
getting a C. I got a C in the end. And he was just like, hey, math isn't your thing. And I really can't recommend that you go to the next level of calculus. But I knew that I was not doing well. I had the points to prove it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was being singled out for anything about my identity. It was just like, hey man, your test scores aren't supporting your goal here. Why would your teacher do that to you?
Yeah, I was in a situation kind of similar to that. Like it was the end of the quarter. I went to office hours like here and there, but
Mm.
like I just took the final or something like that. And, I just like stopped by his office and I was like, I know I didn't do well, but like I want to be in this. And sometimes people in computer science and coding are very logical, so I
Mm.
think maybe from his perspective, he's like, she's not doing well, try something else. But, for me, I noticed like people that look like me, I could have been struggling, F's, whatever. They never told me like, do something else.
Yeah, that's awful. And I think the most important thing was that you just said, I want to do this. I know I'm not doing well. And you went to office hours. While I was like, I hate math and I need to be out of this quickly. Just pass me and let me never see you again. If I had gone
Yeah.
in and said, I deeply am passionate about math, I would hope I would get support. It's really awful that someone would say, this is a thing I want, so help me. And they would say, do something else. That would mess you up.
Yeah. Passion is something that's really interesting too. Like some people would tell me like, oh, if you're not passionate about this, maybe it's not for you. But, I learned that passion can develop over time. And sometimes like you might not be passionate with something because you don't really know what it is. Like if you're learning to code and you're just like struggling so much with it, maybe you haven't got to have that joy of like figuring out a bug or like creating something, creating an app. So yeah, when you said passion, I was like,
Well, I think that's a really great thing to dig into a little bit because I think that we have this artificial narrative, particularly in the West and, US, Canada, Europe, of like, you're supposed to know your passion. Like you're
Yeah.
15, you're 18, you're 23. How are you supposed to know that you want to do a thing unless you do a bunch of things and try them out?
Yeah, exactly. I think the whole concept of, having to pick your major and, go through that at such an early age is like, it's crazy.
hmm But you knew you wanted to do something with computers, but you didn't know, like, how did you know what kind of tech person you wanted? Because there's websites and there's databases and there's, like you said, cognitive science, and there's low level and high level.
Yeah, so for me, I actually chose different majors at all like the schools I applied to. My parents, so I'm from Nigeria and Ghana, and my parents are like, "You're not going to go to college and waste money, like you are going to pick a major." So I kind of just picked random things because I had a lot of different interests at the time, like history, creative writing, but the school I got the most financial aid to was UC San Diego, and I had chosen computer science randomly. I think my thought process was Facebook was cool. That was like the big app at the time, and that was it. And actually went to a program for students with no experience that UCSD put on. And an RA in the program was like, we were all kind of venting about the program. And I vented as well. Like, I don't know if I should do this. And then she was like, you have to be really passionate about this. So if you're not passionate, you won't do well. And she kind of had those sentiments. So it was actually partly her. I was like, no one's going to tell me what I can and can't do. So it was like a stubbornness kind of thing. And I kind of just like went through my classes unsure of what I wanted to do. But then I did an app making class and, it was like 10 of us. Everyone was like super supportive and we kind of like built an app. And I was like, wow, like, this process and like doing this with a team, I really liked it. So that was kind of like what I saw myself doing, in industry, working with the team, working on features, like that kind of stuff.
So that's interesting. So she said that if you're not passionate, then you're not going to be successful, which sounds a little gatekeepy. But then at the
Yeah.
same time, you got to do a bunch of different stuff, and then you discovered a thing that you liked.
Yeah.
Is that a reasonable analysis?
Yeah, it's a reasonable analysis. I think what sucked about the situation was that there was a whole bunch of people venting, but for some reason, I guess something I said triggered her. And for me, I was the person, and of course, the only Black person in the program that was told by her to like, maybe explore something else. And I feel like the app making class, there were so many different things that just worked. Like one was a supportive team. By then I had met a professor who told me like a quote that I just love is like, don't quit something because it's hard, quit something because, you tried it and you realize like what it is and you realize it's like not for you type of thing. So I was in a better stage mentally by the time I took that class as well.
I put this tweet out a couple of days ago that got some good pickup where I was kind of reflecting on how long I've been in software and realizing that all this stuff I know, which is a huge amount, and then you've been in software for a while now too, so you know a bunch of stuff and you look back and like, how do I know all this stuff?
Hmm.
The reason is that because I wasn't chased out of tech.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know any of this stuff, right? So if you had given up or anyone who's listening had given up, they wouldn't know the stuff that they know.
Yeah.
So you really need that freedom to fail without feeling judged.
That part, the freedom to fail without being judged, I think that's so key. Like, it's a safe learning environment for me. Like, I think that was one of the huge game changers.
So how do you do that? And you have like Slack at the end of your title or Microsoft at the end of your title or Google. Like, I mean, I guess if I was working, I always pick on the people at Little Debbie Snack Cakes because I'm sure that they have an IT department. But
Uh
like,
huh.
if my business card said Scott Hanselman and Little Debbie Snack Cakes, I wouldn't feel like if I screwed something up, it would change the world and like, Little Debbie wouldn't ship that day. But like,
Hmm.
if I work at Microsoft or Slack and I break something and then the news says Slack is down, says engineer Maya Bello, who missed a semicolon, um, then I'd be more stressed out, right?
Hmm.
Do you have any sense of imposter syndrome that's based on the bigness of the company that you work for?
No, not for the bigness of the company. I feel like there's just so many steps in our pipeline. Like one of the first, well, not one of the first steps. So one of the steps we do is, we release a feature just to our team and then just to like our sister team. And then, the employees at Slack that I feel like in one of those steps, at least the features I work on, someone would have caught it. And so that's not something I really think about day to day.
Interesting. And what I'm hearing you say underneath that is that there's a process in place
Yeah.
that encourages some experimentation. And if a
Yeah.
mistake was made, it wouldn't be you that's the title of that headline. It would be the process went down or something failed in the process. And that process is meant to save you and the customer.
Yeah, I'm just glad. Like, one of the things I was looking for in different companies I was applying to was that I wanted to feel kind of like that safe space to explore. And like, a manager that I had was like, like, we want you to have that freedom to like make those mistakes. And like, if there's an incident, like my one of my manager has a joke that's like, give that person a cupcake, like they just try to not see that as a negative, so we're not like afraid to fail.
So it seems like you're looking to redefine imposter syndrome. Do you think that word is used too much and it's holding people back?
I think sometimes we put a lot of things and call it imposter syndrome. Like, we're not really true to the definition of it. And, I think imposter syndrome is not entirely a bad thing. Like, for example, like, let's say I'm giving a presentation at work, I might be thinking about what I'm going to say in the shower, just like throughout my day. And then when I do have my presentation, I do kill it, So the imposter syndrome kind of motivated me to put more time into something. And then I also think about sports at school. Like, I did track, and like I would feel like really nervous beforehand, but it was just because I really cared and I wanted to do well. And, maybe there was a crowd watching. And I just think of imposter syndrome as a feeling as well. Like, it's there. However, it just shows that maybe I'm touching a new part of the code base, or I'm exploring something new. So I just recognize it and like use that to like push me.
It's interesting. You just said something that I just took differently. You said touching a different part of the code base. When
Hmm.
you have a personal experience and you feel nervous and uncomfortable, you're touching a different part of your own code base, an unfamiliar corner. And that experience is going to then cause you to grow. So yeah, you're going to get nervous. It's like, I'm not supposed to be in this room. When did we get this extension to the house? And then you
Hmm.
go and you make it your own, and then it becomes natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, even for this whole podcast that we're doing, I was looking at all the different guests you had, and I was like, oh my goodness, like, why did you invite me? I had imposter syndrome, kind of like just, but I didn't really feel like a fraud in that sense, but I guess I had feelings of nervousness. But then I was like, hey, maybe that would be a good topic. And look at us now. So,
Exactly. And when I talk to people, I will look at their LinkedIn's and I'll say, my LinkedIn does not look that cool. I went to community college. I don't have a PhD in whatever. And, or they'll write a book. That's the worst, because someone will write a book and then you have to read the book and
yeah.
not just read it, but like highlight it and like do the little sticky flags that stick out of the book and really think. And then
Hmm.
I'll go in. Recently, I've talked to this year. I've talked to 2 billionaires, and that's the
Wow.
most billionaires I've ever met in my entire life.
Yeah.
And they were both super nice, and I was freaking out. But to
Yeah.
your point, I put all this work into it,
Hmm.
and then I came out of each of those interviews going, "I am good at my job."
Yes.
And it wasn't boastful. It wasn't like I'm the man. I was just like, I did the work
Yeah.
and I survived, and that is a good interview.
That's how I felt like after my presentations, or, so basically I did a lot of front end, but when I joined my new team, I told them I wanted to do like more back end and stuff like that. And after I built like, or wrote my first API and all that, I was like, wow, like I did that. And, it's because I put so much like time and thought into it.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Time is of the essence when identifying and resolving issues in your software, and our friends at Raygun are here to help. Their brand new alerting feature is now available for crash reporting and real user monitoring, and they'll make sure you're quickly notified of the errors, crashes, and front end performance issues that matter most to you and your business. You can set thresholds for your alert based on an increase in error count, a spike in load time, or new issues introduced in the latest deployment, along with custom filters that give you even greater control. You can assign multiple users to ensure the right team members are notified, with alerts linked directly to the issue in Raygun that'll take you to the root cause faster. Never miss another mission-critical issue in your software again. Try Raygun Alerting today and create a world-class issue resolution workflow that gives you and your customers peace of mind. Visit raygun.com to learn more. Their simple usage-based plans start from as little as $4 a month with unlimited apps and users. That's raygun.com, raygun.com, to start your free 14-day trial. Now, you call yourself a full stack engineer. You've gone and done front work. You've done back end work. Do you see that there's some mystique around front end versus back end? It seems like some people get stuck on the front end and they think that there's something magical happening on the API side. It sounds like you pushed past that and just found it to be just a different way to code.
Yeah, one thing that allowed me to do that was I had people on my team, I had managers, like I had support from people saying like, yeah, like of course, you can like dive into this. So that was like one good thing I had was again that safe learning environment. And it was really that kind of like that willpower. Like I wasn't doing well in college, but I decided to keep going. And just having that actually like is still instilled in me that I just had that same willpower. Like I might not like back end, but I want to be able to do some things and come to that conclusion myself. So that was something else I wanted to do. Like it might take me a while, but I want to see if I like it.
What's significant about that is that you applied real intentionality. Like
Yes,
a lot
that's
of
the
people
word.
just fall into their thing, like I got moved because my boss moved me over to that thing, but you decided this is a part that I want to visit, right? This is a part of the code base that I
Yeah.
haven't touched before. I'm going to go over there where I will be where I will be uncomfortable.
Yes, being uncomfortable is something I've learned is actually a good thing. I think there's a quote like, be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I learned as well. Like when I'm starting to feel that, it's like, okay, it's going to be a little bit stressful now, but getting through this, I'm going to learn a lot and just come out so much better that it's like, when you're comfortable with being uncomfortable, you enjoy the journey more. And, coding every day, it's like a different feature, a different bug, a different whatever. And it's just one big journey,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Yeah, there's a really great TED talk by my friend Lovie Ajayi Jones that she did in 2017 called Get Comfortable with Being Uncomfortable. So I would encourage the folks that are listening to check out Lovie talking about that because you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And speaking of being uncomfortable, I say this to people who are kind of earlier in career, earlier than I am, that you don't have to do all this extra stuff. Like you don't have to have a YouTube and a TikTok and a Shopify and but you know what I mean? But you do. Do you think that's generational or is that just a personal choice and you just happen to be someone who just can't stop?
Well, something about me is I have loved creating videos like forever. Like even back in high school, I had videos of me. So I learned sign language from watching a TV show. And so I would like sign different songs and stuff like that. And I have YouTube videos about that. So I love like creating and editing. And then I actually created my first video because it was my first day of work as a software engineer. And I was just so freaking proud of myself. I was in the parking lot and was like, wow, like I really did that. So I wanted to record the moment just for myself. But then I thought about like some key moments in my journey that helped. And I was like, I think this could help other people. And that was kind of one of the reasons why I started to like create content on YouTube.
Yeah, and you've got like over 100 uploads now, and you've got coding tutorials, you've got my unboxings, all kind of stuff. Like you can't be put in a box, it seems.
I think that's like the motto of my life. Like, I just have so many different interests, and, I want to explore all of that in my lifetime. So I'm just glad I have some people that watch it.
Sometimes when I'm doing YouTube videos or tutorials, especially if it's something new that I've only done for a little while, I think, why am I the one to do the intro? Like you did a
Hmm.
Python tutorial for beginners earlier this year, and
Yeah.
there's a million Python things out there. What do you tell someone who's listening who wants to do something like that and they go, oh, well, Maya already did it. Or even worse, the creator of Python has a video. What do you say to the creator who might be stopped by that?
Yeah, it's like your perspective really does matter. And it's like you never know what someone's learning needs are. They might have watched four different tutorials. I bet some of the listeners have been there and you still don't quite get something. And it might be your analogy or the way you say it that really like helps someone. And then also like when you teach things as well, you really understand it way better. Teaching something is a very tough thing to do. So at the end of the day, I remember saying, like, even if no one watches this tutorial, like at the end of the day, I, will learn something or know something better. So having that perspective. But yeah, everyone has a unique voice, and I think everyone's voice is needed.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to look at it. I give myself the argument that if only like two people watch it, that's still like triple the power because it was like me and then two other people, so like three people got something out of it.
Oh,
But
nice. I like that.
ultimately, like I've been blogging for almost 20 years, and like it's for me though. Like I can Google stuff I was doing 10 years ago, and like I'll Google for
Yeah.
stuff and I'll find my own answer, and I'm like, see, I knew that.
Yeah, and even like my Python tutorial, like the comments in there are just like so beautiful. Like people saying like, thank you. Like I really didn't know where to start. And something I did for my tutorial was like, let's not use an IDE. Let's use an online code editor so more people, have access to this, and like really like taking my time with it. That a lot of tutorials are sometimes too fast. And what I brought was like a more I don't want to say slower approach, but a more approach that I feel like more people could actually like do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's not just your voice, but it's how you found the material. Um,
Hmm.
like go back to the calculus example. It turns out maybe it wasn't me that was bad at calculus. Maybe the teacher didn't work for me. Maybe I needed to find the right YouTube or the right book or
Hmm.
whatever. If there's only one way to learn a thing and it works for everyone, that in itself will prevent people from learning stuff. Like I don't know if you've ever learned C++, but
Hmm.
pointers almost killed me. Right.
Same.
Right. And then you got pointers to pointers, and then you got linked list to pointers. And then one day you wake up and you get it. You got it. And you don't know why. Like Tuesday, I didn't know what pointers were. And Thursday, I'm throwing them around all over memory.
Yeah, no, I feel that. And I think something I learned too is like, it's a quote, I think by Albert Einstein, but like people who know things the best can like explain it to a 6-year-old or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've realized over time is that, sometimes I would go to help for a classmate or a peer, and then they would explain it. And then like sometimes like even like laugh at the questions I had. But then it was honestly because they didn't really know it that well, that they didn't explain it that well. And once I found someone who did, it was like, oh, got it.
Yep, exactly. And that's so important to remember. And it sounds like you're trying to send the ladder back down, as we
Yeah,
say, and lift more people up so that they can work at places like Slack or Microsoft or Google or whatever. And
definitely.
have you had any positive messages on your YouTubes or on your Twitter say like, hey, thank you, I found you?
Yes, I don't. Oh, it's actually going to get me crying. Huh. Just how like much those messages mean to me, but it's like the exact same situations I go through. Like just the other day, someone was like, I was in the car, I was crying, I was talking to my dad, saying like, I don't know if this is for me. I'm not doing so well in my class, but then I saw your video, and that's the reason I'm going to keep going. Or even on a TikTok video, I showed like one of my grades, and I like failed a class before, and someone said like, I'm failing right now, but if you're a software engineer, that means I can keep going. And just a week ago, they commented saying they're getting A's now. And it's just, I think people, something else that I just love to live by is just because something's hard, it doesn't mean it's not for you. And I think a lot of people in the industry or like professors, they kind of say that you just need to get it. If you don't get it, then like go away. But it's not like that at all. It's like the power of hard work, and like, progress is crazy. And yeah, lots of great messages.
Yeah. It's cool when someone sees something in you that you didn't even know mattered and it mattered to
Yeah.
them.
Hmm.
Uh, I'll take one story that I'll share with you that I'm type 1 diabetic. So I have a number of medical implants, and I've got a blood sugar meter. I've got a glucose monitor that's attached to me all the time, 24/7. I've got tubing and an insulin pump. It's like a whole thing. But
Yeah.
my privilege is I can hide it in my pockets. But one time I was giving a talk at a technical conference, and I started having a low blood sugar, and I ended up standing on one foot like a stork to balance myself, bring my blood sugar stuff out, check my blood sugar, adjust stuff, take some, and I kept talking about the technical stuff while I was doing this maneuver.
Yeah.
And I didn't think anything of it. I was just trying not to die. And this gentleman came up afterwards and said that his son had been diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic a couple weeks before, and he was crying about what will he do? Like, will he be able to have a job? Now, of course, type 1 diabetics can be very, very
Yeah.
healthy and very happy, but he saw me deal with a blood sugar thing with some kind of grace, except for the standing on one foot part, and keep talking about the thing. And he just said that that little moment of representation gave him just like, oh, wow, like he's going to be fine.
Yeah, that moment of representation. I like the way you phrase that. And yeah, that's why representation in so many different forms is so necessary. And yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, because I think that like naysayers or people who might like, hey, the code doesn't care about what color you are or whatever. Well, the code doesn't care if you're in a wheelchair, or the code doesn't care. Like, it's just cool to say, oh, look, that's a version of me.
Yeah.
So that job is a job I can have.
Yeah, Slack used to have this leader, Nadia, and she was like right under Stewart and stuff like that. And every time I would hear her just like talk at an all hands, I would just get so like warm inside and just feel so excited just because it's like, one day that could be me. And like before then, I haven't seen a Black woman in that high of leadership. So like just seeing her, and she was just doing her regular thing, just giving a presentation. But that moment was just so powerful for me.
Yeah, just literally just doing her job, right? It
Yes.
wasn't not giving a talk about being Black at Slack or whatever. It's just like,
Yeah.
here's the job and here's the thing I'm doing. Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, you never know when those things matter, whether they be invisible disabilities like my own, or whether it be something that's a difference that's visibly invisible to someone else. All those little moments matter, and then the intersections of all of them become really,
Yeah.
really interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you've got the TikTok now, you've got the YouTube. I've noticed that a similar thing happened to you that happened to me, where you're getting more followers on TikTok than on YouTube. I know you've been growing the YouTube for a while, and video is passion for you,
Yes.
but you have almost 3 times the followers on TikTok. Is that the place to go for coding help now?
I love that question. I actually did a series on TikTok where it's like learn a little bit of Python like every day type of thing.
Hmm.
So maybe, but yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I started my YouTube beforehand. I started TikTok during the pandemic, as like a lot of people have. And yeah, I figured out kind of like the TikTok algorithm, but it's YouTube. So hard to crack.
Yeah, I've the same way. I put stuff on YouTube and nobody cares, and then they'll discover it a year later, and I'm like, I wish you had found it the day I released it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and on TikTok, I just can't compete. I'm not going to be dancing, so all I've got is my coding. But I tried that too. I tried a little C# every day for 30 days. And then
Nice.
at the end of the 30 days, 31-minute videos,
Hmm.
TikTok sends me an email saying, you now have 3-minute video uploads. After I did a month of 1-minute videos,
Yep.
struggling to fit anything into a single minute that would help anyone.
It's honestly like an exercise to figure out like what can you teach in like, anywhere from 10 seconds to like a minute. And, even just figuring out that and how can you say it in a condensed type of way is like, it was such an exercise for me. Yeah.
Well, speaking of doing things in a condensed way, I understand that you also have made like data structure flashcards, and you're helping people crack
Yes.
the technical interview in really
Hmm.
condensed little 3x5 cards that they can buy.
I'm seeing a trend here. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely did that. So I spent months studying for technical interviews just because like, in the past I failed Google twice, other companies. And, it wasn't until I saw a creator and they talked about how they did 200 plus like leak code questions in order to pass their interview. And I was just like, wow, like people really did that many. So I kind of went on this journey of studying and, using different resources. And, after those 7 months, like failed Google twice, finally, passed their technical interview, passed their interviews and like different companies as well. Slack, one of those companies. And yeah, from there, I had all these different notes, like notebooks of things. And I met up with, a fellow YouTuber, Meezy, and we decided to kind of like put our notes together and, kind of take the most important parts and put them on flashcards. And yeah, we did that.
You met up, is that Almesia?
Yes. Yeah. We've
Oh,
never met in person.
okay.
I
We
found her.
actually work together.
Oh, nice. I love her.
That's a small world. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but think about what you did for a second though. You did all this studying, you did all this work, you go and interview, and then you didn't just stop when you get the win. You went and made flashcards for other people to win at the interview as well. That's the kind of generosity that we want in a content creator.
Yeah, after I went through all those interviews, I kind of just felt something didn't felt right, kind of empty a little bit. And I was like, it doesn't feel right to just stop here. So, I was talking to Meezy and Meezy was like, yeah, I've kind of had this idea. And I was like, girl, I got all these notes. Like, let's do it. And it was just such an easy partnership that we had. But yeah, it wasn't until like after we finished these cards that I was like, okay, like now this feels right. This feels complete. Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, folks can check you out all over the internet. You're on basically everywhere as Maya underscore loves underscore code. So on Twitter, on YouTube,
hmm
and on TikTok. And they can follow along. And if they're early in career, they can check out your technical flashcards. And I'll put a link in the show notes to make sure that folks can get a hold of those.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Yeah. It's been nice chatting.
This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.